and that's sort of what ties me to PCA. Andrew, I was fortunate enough to meet Andrew, and he brought me into the circle here, and from then it was just sort of a natural fit and something that really inspired me and something that made a lot of sense. So that's sort of my 10-second intro, and now I'll do my welcome to the workshop. All right, well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here. If I could ask you to just text your name and your email. It's a great way for us to keep track of our outreach, and it's a really efficient way for us to do so, so thank you for taking that time to do that. All right, well, thanks a lot for being here, coaches. You know, being in this room full of coaches just really makes me think of all the coaches I've had in my life. And that goes from my very first coach, who is my father, to pretty much the rest of the coaches I had throughout the course of my athletic career. Some not so great coaches and some really phenomenal coaches who, some of whom have been nominated for awards coaching in the NHL. So as I mentioned before, I just finished a 7-year professional ice hockey career. I was very fortunate to realize my dream of playing in the NHL. I might be dating myself a little bit, but I remember going to North Stars games with my grandparents way back in the day, and just having that thought, you know, just what a cool thing that these guys get to play hockey for a living. Like, what a dream that must be. So as a kid back then, I think it might be a little different now with social media, people being able to take a glimpse into the lives of pretty much whoever is willing to make their life public, including athletes. But back then, you know, when I looked at an NHL player, I thought Mike Modano or Wayne Gretzky. You know, every single guy here was playing professional hockey from the age of 18, and they're going to have 20-year careers. It's going to be great. So my road in professional hockey was quite a bit different from that. My road looked a little bit more like taking a 15-hour bus ride to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and staying in a crummy hotel room 2 to 3 times every couple weeks. And that's the reality of the fact, and that was the reality for more than 95% of the guys that I played with in my career. So while it was an incredible gift, you know, since I've been done, I've had a lot of time to reflect on my career and the things that I took away from it. And I've realized the things that I really valued from the career were the relationships I developed, just meeting some great people, learning a lot of great things from them, and then the lessons that I learned from sport, you know, the determination, the teamwork, all the things that I sort of took for granted as being a part of sport that are really lessons that will serve me through the rest of my life, whether it's been meeting people in different industries who have pointed that out to me, or just taking the time to reflect on that. So that's where I think it's really important. It's kind of during this reflection period where PCA came into my life and really enabled me to put this into perspective and the importance that coaches have on young people's lives in transferring these skills and making sure that we're instilling the right values in our young athletes that they will take on for the rest of their lives. Because ultimately, we're trying to develop the person in your player so that the player on your team will be better. So, with that being said, I want everyone to open up to the inside cover of their Double Go coaching book, which you should have gotten upon entering. And I just want you to write one sentence. What it is you want your legacy to be as a coach. Just take 1 minute real quick to write down how you want to be remembered by your players. And I'm going to give you guys just 30 seconds to do this. Don't think long. And I think this is an important thing. I think it's helpful to be able to reflect at the end of this workshop, and maybe you've learned something that will change what you want your legacy to be. Maybe you don't really know at this point, and maybe this will help you to find that. And I think it could be a helpful tool just to reflect on what we've learned today. So that being said, I'm not going to sit here and just talk to you guys for an hour. We're gonna do a workshop. I want you guys to get involved because, as I said, I'm young in my coaching career, and I take this as an opportunity to learn from you guys. So I'm going to be asking some questions. I really want some participation and look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. So we're going to move on now to our third principle, which is honoring the game. So we've just seen our first 2 principles, the elm tree of mastery and the emotional tank. And can anybody tell me Have you guys ever seen this picture before? Yeah, have you guys seen this picture? Maybe some people recognize it, maybe some people don't. Well, I'm going to play a video for you here. And if you're a big ESPYs fan, I'm sure you've seen it. Back in 2008, this won an ESPY, and it's a really touching and emotionally filled video, and I think it's an important one that really helps warm up our honoring the game principle. So I would play that. Andrew told me he doesn't want me to play that for the moment, Kelly. Is that okay?
That's fine. You don't have to play.
All right. All right. So that's a great moment. That's a great moment in sports in general, and we really think that that's a moment that helps encompass honoring the game. You know, these two girls, they were not told to do this. It was just something in the way that the culture that their coach had created. They knew it was the right thing to do. They knew that this girl had earned the right to hit a home run, and they did the right thing. So, moving forward, at PCA we like to use analogies, right? We use the elm tree. We use a tree for the elm tree of mastery. We use the analogy of a gas tank for our E-tank. And we're going to come back to the tree for our third principle. And I think this is an exciting one because, you know, you look at the facets of a tree. You have the leaves and the branches, and then you have the trunk, and then you have the roots. And to me, the roots symbolize the base, the foundation of the tree. Without a solid root system, your tree is going to waver. It's not going to have the strength to grow big and strong. It's going to falter in the face of adversity. And so we like to use the word roots as an acronym. And I think these 5 things are very important things, areas in the game that we want to respect. We want you to coach your team to respect these areas. And if you do so, I think you'll find it makes a tremendous difference, not just in how they act as players, but how they perform as players as well. So here we have our acronym for roots. Does anybody have a guess at what the R stands for? Anyone? Tex? You look like you have an idea.
Something about respecting something, or.
Well, that's true. I mean, all these things have to do with respect, but our first element of the game that we want to respect is the rules. So, anybody have any examples of rules in the sports that they coach or sports that they have played that can be bent or pushed a little bit that are oftentimes gotten away with? You know, for instance, in hockey, a lot of times in face-offs, players will creep into the face-off circle when they're not supposed to. It's a big circle around the dot, and players will creep in, and refs have a hard time keeping them out, and it's just an area, it's a rule that is oftentimes broken and oftentimes gotten away with. Does anybody have any relation to the sport that they coach they could share with me right now?
I would say traveling in basketball.
Traveling in basketball.
Boy, balls and strikes in baseball.
Balls and strikes in baseball. Exactly. I mean, these are all areas of the rules that are oftentimes bent or broken, and we can get away with them a lot. You know, it's really important for us that we want to respect the rules of the game because, you know, when we start losing respect for the rules, we start losing respect for the integrity of the game. One line that was spoken to me a lot in my hockey career was, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And you hear it so many times that you start to believe it. And I started to at the beginning of my career, but having reflected on that, you know, the players on my teams who would really take that to heart and who would cheat in practice, in face-off drills and whatnot, when you get called in a game for breaking that rule, it flusters you mentally. If you're used to getting away with breaking the rules in practice, it's going to fluster you and it's going to rattle your focus in a game when you actually get called on it. So it's really important to respect the rules in the sports that we play. Our next letter is O. Does anyone have an idea what the first O stands for? Andrew?
Based on the picture, it looks like your opponent.
That is correct. Respect your opponents. And this is a big one. So how many people, we were actually talking about this, I was talking about this with a few coaches, how many people have gone into a game where, you know, you've played a team that's just won 40 games in a row and hasn't been beat, and you've lost the last 6 or 7 times you played and you're just expecting to get whomped. Right? We've all been in that situation. Conversely, how many of us have been in a situation where We've been a lot better than the team we're going up against. We think we're just going to roll all over them, only to find them just making it a really close game or even beating us in the end. You guys all been in that situation? I think so. I've certainly been in that situation many times. So the thing about respecting our opponents is they help elevate our game. The Latin root of the word compete means to strive with, not against. And it's important to note that we want our opponents to elevate our performance. We don't want to look at them as a deterrence for our success. So we're not asking you to have your players lay down on the field of competition. We want your players to be fierce. We want your players to want to win with everything in themselves. And a great comparison for me in the sport of hockey, I had no idea about fighting in hockey until I turned professional. You know, I was high school and college, we wore cages. We were not involved in that area at all, and it was very foreign to me. But I was pretty amazed to see that throughout the course of my career, every enforcer, as we call them, every big tough guy fighter, every time they would get done with a fight, these two guys just going blow for blow, literally battling with each other, about as fierce as competition can get, would pat each other on the back afterwards and recognize each other and their efforts and what they did. You know, we don't condone fighting at PCA by any means, but I'm just trying to exemplify that you don't need to lay down the ability to compete just in order to respect your opponents. That I think they actually can go hand in hand. All right, our next O is for officials. So this can be a tough one at times. How many of you guys have ever been upset with an official before? Official ever made a bad call, in your opinion? I think as coaches, as players, as parents, as fans, I think officials take the brunt of a lot of the frustration in sport. But let me again ask you this. Would you guys rather coach a game with an official or without an official? I think we all know that they're imperative to playing and coaching the games that we love. So that being said, it's really important that we respect our officials. Now, being coaches, especially of youth athletics, do any of you guys have issues with parents talking to the officials during games? Anyone ever had an issue?
No, never. My parents are perfect.
I mean, how do you guys feel in those situations? Do you feel like you're in control? How much control do you feel like you have?
I've always made a point of letting my parents know what's expected prior to the season and reminding them in games. Sometimes even TJ, I'll bring an umpire over to my parents and say, these are my parents, and if you have any trouble with them, let me know.
That's amazing.
Right away. So I'll take care of that. And it's kind of done tongue-in-cheek, because my parents know the expectation, but it also supports the official.
That's fantastic. You know, it's something we really encourage at PCA, just setting the tone early in the season. Whether it's a preseason meeting with your parents, just let them know. Let them know that you are going to control the culture of the game. You know, officials are human beings too, and they're going to make mistakes. And it's the culture we set, not with just our verbal reaction, but with our non-verbal reaction as coaches, that really is going to determine how our players and our parents follow suit. And that's very important. All right, on to the T. Who can tell me what the T stands for?
Teammates.
Teammates, great. So this is obviously another really important one. These are all really important, but this is one as a coach that's easy to overlook. You know, being young in my coaching career, I think one of the things I immediately associate with coaching is teaching skills and teaching strategy and passing that down to the young athletes. I think that's the forefront of my thought process. But ultimately, we're not going to have success as a team unless we respect each other and unless we can compete for one another. So I think it's very easy to overlook that element as a coach, especially as a young coach like myself. I think a great way to do this, I want to ask you guys, when you were growing up, do you guys have any coaches that would do some sort of activity, whether it was in practice or away from the field altogether, something completely unrelated to the sport you're playing, that really brought the team together? Can you guys think back? Maybe share with one another?
We would have a spring break trip in college playing tennis, so we would play down there, but also it's a chance for us to sort of be with each other for 24 hours a day and get to know some of your teammates, because it was always in the very first part of the season.
We had a football. My high school coach had a baseball.
So what you do with your football team is get them rest and make them rest.
Right, and that's how men and women do it, and sacrifices that women make, but also how we run it together. So I think that was a good way to send the tone,
Yeah.
set the message.
That's great.
We would have baseball teams, basketball. Run a little bit more.
We'll do that with wrestlers, right, Tex?
Right.
Wrestlers
All right.
play basketball.
Well, Tex, I heard.
Basketball.
Tex, I think you had a great example. I think can you share that with everyone else? What that example was?
Sure. So growing up in wrestling, coaches were always trying to figure out how to get us to actually work hard
Mm-hmm.
and get out of the wrestling room. So we would have football in December between break. We dress up in our warm clothing, our snowmobile suits and stuff, and there's usually about 2 or 3 feet of snow outside, and we go play football. So imagine wrestlers dressed up in snowmobile suits trying to catch football. It's cold and hard, and we have to tackle each other. Actually, it became a really fun thing.
That sounds fun. And what do you think it was that you really took away from that? How did the team grow from that experience?
We laughed.
Yeah.
We were out of our elements, and we just realized that we're all in this together, and there was no pressure. It was just about to have fun, and that brought back a little bit of our team unity, having fun.
That's great. I think that's a great example too, because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes the best wrestlers on the team aren't going to be the best football players, and I think you can really see the way people bring different parts to a team and how everyone plays an important role. And I think just taking a step away from the sport, and whether it's in practice doing something silly like playing volleyball for a soccer team or something, you're going to take your athletes out of their comfort zone of their everyday routine, and you're going to help them appreciate each other as teammates more so just as the players they are on the team. And there are great ways to do that. You can do a player of the week, and it doesn't have to be related with success on the field, but it can be who gave the best effort in practice, maybe who was filling water bottles or who was helping picking up lacrosse balls. There's certain ways to do that to help out with that. So our last principle is self, and this is obviously one we want every kid to respect themselves, but it's just not the case. And with bullying, with hazing, and social media, there's a lot of ways that kids can lose a lot of self-confidence. And through these ways we've been talking about, filling the emotional tank, giving out Player of the Week awards, these are all ways that you can help instill self-confidence in your players. And that will ultimately be the foundation in which they will end up respecting the rest of these elements of the roots. So moving on, what are we really doing here? We're trying to build a culture. And at PCA, we like to say that the culture is the way that we do things here. And I once heard a coach say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that really rung true with me just in my own personal career, because the best teams I ever played on were the ones that had the best culture, with the players who respected each other the most, and it works. In my own experience, I just have to say it works, and I think creating a culture is a great way to have success. So that being said, I understand we're all human as coaches, and under these situations of stress, trying to uphold yourself as a leader of an organization, of a team, you're going to lose your cool. You're going to want to yell at a ref who made a bad call. It might be a really big game, and you might be on the brink of losing control. And that's why we have self-control routine. If you guys open up your books to page 46, there's some great ways that we have written down for you to control yourself in these situations when you otherwise might lose your cool. John Cooper, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, was one of my coaches, and he used to keep a bag of Skittles in his jacket pocket during every game. And every time he was about to lose his cool, he would eat a Skittle. I would like to think it was to remind himself to sweeten up a little bit, but that was just his routine. Do you guys have any routines that you use right now as coaches to help yourself in your moments of stress? Dex?
So sometimes, like in wrestling, coaches can be as close as 8 feet to the competition, and they yell a lot. And in the past, I've worked with some of the coaches that if they're yelling just a little too much, a little too loud, a little too obnoxiously, I just reach into my pocket and give them a piece of gum.
I like that. A little something else to chew on.
A little something else to chew on besides chewing out people.
Yeah, that's a great technique. Well, there's a lot more great examples in our book, and I really encourage you guys to look through that and utilize them because they're really fantastic. So
we'll stop you there, JT.
Okay. All right.
That was 20 minutes, and so Kelly, Eric, Ruben, any comments, any feedback? Round of applause. Quietly though, without being on mute.
Nice job.
Thanks
for going first.
No problem.
All right, what I'd love to do is to start by having the people in the room. If you guys would just say, first impression, what did you like most about what JT did? So Andrew, why don't you just call people? Go ahead.
Well, I'll start first. I think for me, those really good examples that you gave, the talking about the enforcers when you talk about opponents, John Cooper's with the Skittles, those are just they're really good tidbit that they can take home with and they can probably relate to. So I think that was really good in terms of being able to sort of paint a picture for these coaches of what we're trying to get them to accomplish.
All right,
Paul. I enjoyed your introduction of yourself. I thought it was appropriate, and not only the content but the length of it. It adds credibility to what you're doing. I think that you feel very comfortable with the content, which is, that just gets better as time goes on.
Yeah.
So at this juncture, you appear to be confident in the content, which is great.
Cool. Thank you.
I was going to say again, I think just your demeanor seems very relaxed and very good flow. I agree the same thing, that you were able to kind of transition to pieces. I'll also say kind of another note is that you asked me what I thought R was, and I said like respect or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of threw you off guard.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate about that is that you said, oh yeah, well that could be one aspect of it, but what we're looking for is this.
Okay.
And a lot of times in training or things like this, if you don't get that right answer, you'll say no.
Yeah.
And you don't mean it in a bad way, but just the fact that you appreciated what I said, even though it wasn't what you wanted, you kind of built on that. So from a training perspective, I really appreciate that part.
Great, thank you.
I think you seem confident up there. You seem comfortable. Your speed of how you deliver it isn't rushed, and a lot of times when you get nervous or anxious, you can talk a bit faster, and you seem to be in control that way, TJ. And when you make eye contact with various people in your audience, I think that's powerful too. It kind of draws them into what it is they're saying.
Cool. It's easier to make eye contact with real people. No, but sorry for neglecting the Google Hangout portion of the team, but
That's
this is
okay.
a little easier to engage.
That's okay. Alex, what did you think about what JT did?
I put for positive. You understood the PCA material very well. I thought you delivered all that stuff very well. I really liked when you provided specific things, even with the team bonding activities, when you provided specific things that people can take home with them, specific ideas. I also, piggybacking on somebody else had mentioned the examples you used with the enforcers and different stories like that you can draw on from your own life stories. I think the one thing I would say is to make those even more specific. I thought you talked a lot in the stories, a lot more in the broad terms of this certain type of thing happened to me at one point, but the one story that's going to stick out in my mind that I'm going to remember for however long is the Skittles story, because that was a specific one, whereas like the enforcers fight at some point during games, or other stories that you have, and you have obviously a great hockey background, and I'm sure you can draw upon a lot of stories of bus rides or officials or anything like that, but not just talking about those in broad terms, but really using specific stories, I think would be great.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Eric?
Yeah, it's similar to play off that, because I wrote the same thing down. The John Cooper story was great. My whole thing, again, and you and I haven't ever had a chance to talk, is the idea of being the magic in the room. And the magic in the room for you, to me, generally is the NHL player. The fact that you talked initially really about being new to coaching, but you have great experience of playing. Again, these are the things that have been effective for me throughout my career, starting as a mite and going all the way 9 years through the NHL. And as a new coach, having the structure of PCA has been invaluable in that way. To apply what's worked for me is a great way to start it off. So then, I first of all, the fact that you really know the material so well was very impressive, and will allow you, as other guys mentioned, about being more specific. So the Skittles is great. I think your word choice is great. You use words like perspective. You used influence, develop the person inside the player. Your language is great. So I thought that was fantastic. The thing, more so, is this is a little thing, and this is a me thing, and Ruben, please feel free to disagree, or Kelly, jump in. I, as a presenter, don't like people guessing the rules, opponents, officials, teammates, himself, only because, and as we redo the PowerPoint, that's going to go away anyway. It just often puts you in an awkward position where they guess the wrong thing, and you have to say, well, actually,
okay,
wrong. And so I like that you had the polling questions around things like rules. So there was good bite to it. This is a really specific thing, but back to the magic in the room. Opponent, you had to work. First of all, I would definitely not make reference to fighting.
Okay.
But you had to work so darn hard to make it work.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you got, and my apologies if he's a friend of yours, you got Matt Cook.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Sitting right there. Hopefully not right there, he'll punch you in the face. But the notion of keeping real conversations, like how do you want to be known? And I'm a former hockey player as well, and there really is no sport, I think, actually, where players disrespect each other more at times to extremely dangerous consequences.
Yeah.
And, again, with, what happened to, I forget his first name, Jablonski, and maybe that wasn't even an illegal hit, but your audiences are familiar with the dangers of things when people don't respect opponents.
Yeah.
And you really can talk about that.
Yeah.
And so I would use your platform to pick something really specific that advances what we're trying to talk about.
Okay.
And then the final thing I just sort of jumped around again on, you did a great job of acknowledging when you don't do something. So when you talked about teammates, you said it's easy to overlook. I thought was a really good way. Because what one should avoid to me is saying, well, this one's really good and this one isn't good, or I think this one works, and then it tends to make them seem certain ones less important. You didn't do that. You just simply said it's easy to overlook. Was a great way to phrase it. So again, I just thought it was outstanding, and as I said, the specific languaging was really good.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, Ruben?
Yeah, I mean, what a bunch of great feedback you've already received, JT. So more bombardment here. I'm going to try to keep it to three things because JT, I just really have enjoyed all of your facilitations from the audition all the way through today, and it's just been a pleasure participating in these. So I'm just going to mention three quick things. One is, as you continue to develop as a trainer, I would encourage you to start experimenting with non-hockey examples and terminology, so that when you go to a non-hockey group, you're ready to go with that. I know that with the camera, we only have so much space for you there. I would encourage you to allow yourself to move more as a facilitator within whatever space constraints you have. And today you do have the space constraints of the camera, but for the two that are going to follow, even within the space constraints, go ahead and move your right a little bit. JT, keep going. Okay, you're still in our view, clearly. Go move to your left.
Yeah.
You have a little room to there you go. Now you're at the edge of the limit. So anyway, and then lastly, everybody pointed out, your calm, poised demeanor. It's such a strength, and to build on that strength, I would also suggest that you experiment with changing your energy level. Periodically, just sprinkle in an increased intensity, or go ahead and step out of that calm, soothing demeanor just a few times over the course of your workshop.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it, JT. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I agree. My first word I put at the top was smooth. You know the content, you know your stuff. It's great to hear from the perspective of somebody that's been through all levels and is now coming back to coach youth. I like how you said this is kind of a reflection period, and as Eric said, PCA came into my world, and this has been so valuable to me because I thought going in I was going to be teaching skills. What I realized is there's so much more to it. So I thought that was a really great suggestion. I loved your choice of words as well. I wrote down little nuggets. I think the one thing that will stick with me was that the culture you were brought up in was if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I mean, right there, I would sit on that alone for a few minutes. Just let that sink in for a minute. Yeah. That was the culture that we were being taught. And, that's equating effort with cheating. I mean, right there, that can open up a whole nother a whole nother can of worms. So I think that would be a focus of you're talking about culture. The one sentence that you did say was, you have to create a culture to have success. And I think I would add a little bit to that. You have to create a positive culture because if you don't, a culture is created. That is a culture, what it is. Yeah. So, but other than that, I don't want to repeat what everyone else said. But again, I really liked your choice of bringing in the Latin roots, and that you even said your opponent shouldn't be a deterrent to our success. I thought that was just a nice choice of words. I would also bring in other sports. Yeah. I think that would be something that and again, look back at the course questions because you've got 23 different sports coaches that are giving you specific examples. Borrow from them, borrow from the audience. Okay, I don't coach basketball, but give me an example of a rule in basketball that you could, you kind of did that a little bit, but I would make it specific to other sports as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but very nice job. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. That's very valuable feedback.
All right. Who's up?
I'm coaching hockey. High school hockey.
So we have
Blake, just assistant coach. Volunteer.
All right.
Switch spots with the text.
Okay. Just watch out for the cord there.
You really have that professor look going on today, Tex, I have to say.
Yeah, well, I got to teach at 12:20 today, so.
I need to excuse myself at 11.
I think Bryan's at 11, so we should be good with that.
So again, if you just want to give a quick brief bio, we would read the detailed one for your workshop. But if you just want to start out so everybody kind of has a background of who you are, that would be great.
Right, so again, my understanding, where am I looking? Here?
Yes, that's fine.
The camera's on the computer, yeah.
You can look up in the big screen. It doesn't matter.
Or should I be looking at my audience?
I would look at your audience.
I know, but my live audience.
Yeah, I would look at your live audience.
All right, so you're going to see my profile.
That's fine.
All right. So then my understanding is I'm going to kind of give my own personal kind of why you buy into this, and then I'm actually going to go into filling your e-take.
That's great. Yep, and if you'd like to use us on the screen as part of your audience, you're welcome to do that too. But if you want to focus on the live audience in the room, that's fine.
I sure will, Coach Kelly.
Thank you, Coach Tex.
All right. Ready? Well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you for your sacrifice of spending time. As a father of 4 children, as a 3-sport coach, as well as other things in between, we know how valuable time really is. Oh, I need that, sir. Oh, I need that, though.
It was blocking the camera, but.
Sorry. It's a prop.
I know, that's what I wrote down.
Okay. I just saw it on here that they wanted me to move it, so.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Ruben didn't know it was a prop.
Sorry. Okay, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so we're going to go back. So thank you so much for being here. Your sacrifices. Time is so important. I think it's one of those things that the fact that you're all here is truly a commitment of what you want to do. And you want to be better. Because don't we want that in all of our athletes? We want them to be better. And so that's why you being here is so important. I think one of the things that I've learned along the way is that as a coach, we certainly understand the value and importance of making and giving an effort. One of the things that we're going to do here today is that we're going to be able to share some things and learn some things from Positive Coaching Alliance.
And what's really important about that is for you to be able to take in what you need. I want to share with you that a couple of things that I've learned along the way is that as we look at it, if we want to go fast, we go alone. But if we want to go far, we would go together. And so that's one of those things that hopefully tonight we can take this opportunity and take this moment to go together, be better coaches, to make a better environment. I'm also an instructor at the University of Minnesota, and so much like when I'm teaching, I realize this. I realize that if you come in to learn and I come in to teach, we create education. But it's the same thing with coaching, that if our athletes come prepared to be in that sport and we come to coach, we can create some great moments, we can create some great teams, but most importantly, we can create some great experiences. I've also learned along the way a couple of other things, that there's many things of why we coach. Now, as we think about it in my 24 years, I've learned this. As I mentioned before, we all can win some games. We all can win some championships. We can win those tournaments. We can win that hardware. It's all important, and we know how valuable that is. But the one thing I've learned is beyond the athletes, beyond the field of competition, is the connections we make. Connections where you get a graduation announcement, that you get a wedding announcement, you get a birth announcement. You get those athletes to see you as a lifelong mentor. So as you think about it, we want to provide you with the holistic piece of who you are and what you can become. I think the other aspect too is this, is that as we go forward, we need to understand this as well. Each one teach one, each one reach one. It's a philosophy that I found very successful. As you look at it, the true coaches, not only do they coach their athletes, but they also try to get their athletes to think like coaches, because we know that many of them want to be coaches. Let me ask you this. How many of you in your participation of sports actually wanted to be a coach after seeing positive experiences of coaches? Raise your hand. We all did. So here's the question, why? Why do we coach? I'll tell you why I coach. I coach because I believe, and I understand, it's been shared with me, that if I can make better athletes, they can become better teammates, and those better teammates can be better adults. Because they may be future coaches, but they'll also probably be future fathers and mothers. And if we can teach them life skills along the way, it can help us understand how to make our experience and their experience as positive as we can. So let me ask you this. Find a partner next to you or around you and finish this sentence. I coach because. Take a moment to do that right now, please.
I coach because I want to create a positive environment for all, because I want to. I coach because I'm passionate to, but I want to learn as I love sports and create relationships.
I've heard some great comments. Thank you so much. Can I have one or two of you please share? What did you hear, or what did you share with somebody? I coach. Volunteer?
I coach because I want to create great experiences for my players and give them opportunities to develop great relationships and lifelong lessons.
Excellent. That lifelong lessons, right? Coach Kelly, I noticed you had a great conversation. Can you finish the sentence for us? I coach because?
Because I want to share what I've learned from my mistakes in being a player. I want to go back and share it with my young athletes and help them enjoy the sport that I learned to love so much.
Great. Thank you so much. You all did a great job. Everyone give me a air high five. Air high five. Here we go. Good. God. I missed you. Come on. All the way in the back. Come on. There you go. So again, this is an opportunity for us to be where we need to be, to go where we need to go. But most importantly, we got to do it together, because together we're better. All right. So if you're ready to learn, if you're ready to move forward, if you're ready to make improvements and share along the way, give me an oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Come on, a little bit more than that. Give me an oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great. So as you see, we just finished learning about the ritual of making mistakes. Now let's move on to another aspect. Let's turn to our next slide. we see the gas gauges. Now let me ask you this. If you're looking at this gas gauge, and we've all been there, right? We've all seen that gas gauge right on that E. And we kind of just keep pushing it. We keep pushing it. But once we get that gas station, we're ready to go. But look at this gas gauge right now. Of which of the gas gauges would you prefer to be driving right now? The empty or the full?
Full one.
The full one, exactly. Because we know that that'll take us farther. We want to go far. It's important to realize that we want that full gas tank. But now the question is why? Why would you want that full gas tank? It's going to be obvious, but I'm looking for at least 2 volunteers to share with me. Why?
It makes me relax knowing that I've got a long ways to go.
Good. Makes you relax. Good. One more, please. Yes, over here.
I think that it allows me to focus, as you said, on the long term versus the short term.
Good. And that long term is really important because our seasons are long. And that's one of the things that we look at. So what we want to do right now is we want moving forward, but realize the aspect is that part of who we are as coaches is to be able to be the fillers, not the drainers. Well, first of all, let me ask this question. We kind of use this example of a gas tank, but what I want to do is I want to use another example. So, typical football. How many football coaches do we have here? Oh, great. Volleyball coaches? All right. Basketball, I can see you back there, yeah. Any one of us use a ball. Let me ask you this. Look at this ball. How many of us would want to score the winning touchdown with this and pass it?
The Patriots.
You just knew that had to come, right?
Easy.
Okay.
Totally
I want to
for and
I want to take the example of this. We talked about the filling of the gas tank, but folks, I want to make the analogy as sometimes our athletes look like this. They look deflated, and they cannot perform. What we need to do is make sure they're what? Inflated. We give them the best tools that they need, and being able to do that. But part of the responsibility not only is from us, but also from the teammates. So we're going to talk a little bit about going from this to this. Now let me just ask, when you think about this, how does this relate to an athlete? When they're deflated, when their tanks are low, how do they react to that? What are some things that come to you? Looking for 2 or 3 individuals to share. What does it mean to have a deflated player or an athlete?
Brings the rest of the team down.
Brings the rest of the team down. Excellent. Someone else?
Not going to pay attention in practice.
You're not going to pay attention in practice. Good. Well, as you can see, is that when we look at this, those individuals that have a deflated self-esteem are pessimistic. They're also not as coachable. And as you can see from here, it's hard for them to really get going. But it's one of those things that when we fill their emotional tank, give them this point, they change. So we go from a deflated player to a inflated, ready to go. What's the opposite? What are some of the things that they feel? Looking for 2 volunteers. Share your thoughts.
Confidence.
Confidence. I love it. What else?
They're willing to go harder, longer.
Willing to go harder and longer. I can tell you definitely, by being a wrestling coach, one of the things that we're constantly working on is trying to fill their tanks. We're trying to help them understand the value that from one moment to the next, and they keep on moving. Especially in wrestling matches themselves. You can have a wrestler. There was one wrestler I had, his name was Tim. He was not doing well, and he was being yelled at by his coaches, and we realized that that wasn't helping. As soon as the match was over, he was defeated, he was lost, but most importantly, he wasn't ready to go on. Well, we just took a couple of ideas and said, how do we get him back? Because he had a match 45 minutes later. Well, we gave him some things to help him be more optimistic. We gave him some things to coach on. And the more aspect we realized is that the more we gave him good things, the better he felt. We later went on to win another match. But it was one of those great examples. Now let me ask you this. Basketball players. Any basketball coaches here? Yes. Can you give an example of maybe one of your players being able to maybe be at a deflated situation but were inflated or filled up because of a positive comment made by a coach?
Yeah, I know that that there was a player who had missed a couple of free throws earlier in the game, and in a critical time in the game, they were fouled again. There was a timeout called, and when they came to the sidelines, I just said, now, after Jeff makes these 2 free throws, here's the defense that we want to get into. And he just kind of brightened up because he knew that somebody had confidence in him and was planting a positive seed for him.
That was a great example. I imagine every one of us has maybe been in a situation like that. But the fact that you actually predicted the future in a positive way, what a great example that is. What a great opportunity that is to build their self-confidence and to fill their tanks. Oh, great. That's a wonderful example. I know that there's other examples as well. But I'd like to move on to another aspect of it. It's one of those things that as we fill our e-tank, is that we need to understand is that how do we do that? So as we look at it, it's one of those things that when we don't fill the tank, it's often done in a series of different actions. So let me do this. What I want you to do is I want you to be either the role of a parent, and actually let's do this. Can I have this side of the room represent a parent? I'd like this side of the room to represent the coaches, and I'd like this side of the room to represent the teammates. What's just happened is I've gotten the football, we're on our way to score, I fumbled the ball. It most likely cost us the game. Now as parents, coaches, and teammates, I want you, on the count of 3, to give me your worst comments you may have heard or could say to me to drain my tank. Ready? Think about that for a moment. I just dropped the ball. We just may lose the game. Give me your comments. 1, 2, 3, go.
What are you doing, Butterfingers?
All right. We've all heard those comments, right? We've all heard them, but we know that those things don't help. What's interesting about that is that what you've just done is you've what? You've deflated me. You've emptied my tank. But here's something you didn't think about. While you're deflating me, what's happening on the other side of the field? Let's imagine that. I'm the opposing coach. I just heard parents and coaches and teammates just drain his tank. How do you think I'm feeling on my sidelines?
Pretty good.
You just filled up every one of my players because of your negative comments. And now my players are ready to go. And I'm going to feed on that. I'm going to go forward with that. So it's one of those things when you understand the values of it. Now let's flip it around. I made the mistake. You know I'm a great player. But now as a parent, a coach, or a teammate, I need you to give me some positive reinforcement, something that I can build up on, even though I made the mistake, and I need to come back. Think about that. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Shake it off.
Got the next one.
Got the next one. Good. Shake it off. It's one of those things that, guess what you just did to me? Much like the example that was shared earlier. You just gave me a projection that, you know what, things will get better. I can do things better. So as we look at it, how do we do that? Well, one of the things that we look at is we need to give to them to fill their tanks, not only these examples, but as you can see on the screen, we need to have truthful praise. We definitely need that in all different ways. That truthful praise will really be something that will build us and give us our confidence. And in doing that, we can build our own self-esteem as coaches. At the same time, as you look at it on the screen, you also have the next one, express appreciation. Express appreciation for the R. Because if you appreciate me like you example before, it gives me a chance to realize the value that I have. And a lot of our athletes need more value, they need more place. And the final one on that aspect is you need to listen. Now, that listening can sometimes be hard, especially in the heat of the moment. But when we can listen to our athletes and learn from them, it creates incredible opportunities. And also the nonverbals. When we do nonverbals, the, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that, versus, come on, you can do it. It makes a world of a difference. So let's just look at that. Truthful praise, express appreciation, and listen. You take those 3 letters and it works into the word tell. Now we're missing one of the L's, but still, T-E-L, tell. So coaches, what I want you to think about is that sometimes when we drain the tank, we have to fill the tank. And we need to tell our players, our athletes, what they need. Tell them with truthful aspects of what they can do. Express our appreciation. Listen to them. And then, of course, the N is in nonverbals. So as we think about who we are, what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to become as a team, as a community, as a sport. Now, there's a great piece on that. If we look into our next slide, it's this notion that if you look on page 32 of your workbook, it talks about the ratios. If you look at it, there's this magic ratio where they say magical things can happen. For every one thing that is done equals another thing. If you look on our screen, who wants to take a guess about the magic ratio? Give me a number 1 through 5. How many of you think it might be a 1-to-1 ratio? Raise your hands. 2-to-1? Thank you. 3-to-1? Anyone think 4-to-1 ratio? Or even think 5-to-1 ratio? Well, what we found through our research is this. The 5-to-1 ratio is one of the aspects that helps the most. What that means is this. For every one negative comment that I might hear, for every one aspect of being deflated, I'm going to need 5 more compliments, 5 more aspects to be able to raise me up where I need to be. It is so easy to be defeated. It is so easy to be drained. It is so easy to be deflated. But when we can build people up and carry them through, we can find the power we need to make a better team, to make a better athlete, and in return, help us be better coaches. So that 5-to-1 ratio is important. So quickly, let me ask you this. You did some great examples before about helping me understand what it means to have some positive reinforcement. Can any of you, I'm looking for about 3 volunteers, share with me something you could say to any one of your athletes? And I want you to pick your sport. So pick your volleyball or wrestling or whatever sport you're in, and tell me something positive to add to that 5-to-1 ratio. Something negative just happened, I need that 5-to-1 ratio. I'm looking for 3 volunteers. Any volunteers? Share with me your sport and then share your positive to help that 5-to-1 ratio.
Hockey.
Hockey. You're a hockey coach? All right. What's one positive thing you can say to fill my tank?
I noticed you back-checking more aggressively than I've ever seen you before.
Great. Did you hear that? The back-checking piece. It's a part of the game and the skill, but he's giving reinforcement. Good. Another sport. Who do we have? Any basketball coaches here? Yes, go ahead.
I could say something to a player. I know you've been working really hard on your defense, and you've been doing a great job on the defensive side of things. Keep up the great work.
Great. Thank you so much. There are so many of you that have so many of those positive things. I'm going to share with you just a brief story about the value and importance of the 5-to-1 ratio. We had a lineman that just couldn't do a very good job, and the coaches were on him saying, you got to do better, you got to block, the quarterback's going to get hurt, people are going to be are not going to be able to trust you. We kept on doing negative, negative, negative. And it was one of those things as we went through it, we found that he just got more and more deflated, right? Well, for example, the coaches thought that, hey, if we keep on telling him what he's doing wrong, he'll want to rise up. He'll want to do better. Well, myself and another coach realized he just needed to be maybe pulled aside. And it's one of those things that as we went through it, we asked him questions, and I used these 3 terms. I said, Josh, I believe you can do this. Josh, I know how well you can do your skills. Josh, I am sure that you will do better. Well, the reality is this. We gave him those positive and he changed. But the one thing we didn't realize and we didn't listen, we gave trusting expressions. We did the expressed appreciation. We tried to listen. But what we didn't realize is the reason Josh was having such a problem on the line is because he was deaf in one ear. He couldn't hear the count, and so everything was going wrong. But once we listened to him and figured it out, we put him on the other side of the line, and with our positive reinforcement, our 5-to-1 ratios, he became a great athlete. So that's what can happen with a 5-to-1 ratio. Thank you.
20 minutes on the dot. Impressive, Dex. Great job. I will start the feedback off again. I thought the examples, the props were great. The throw the football, the deflated versus the inflated, great visualization. I think sometimes it's hard. We're learning things for the first time to really understanding what we're trying to create in the workshop. So being able to have that visual aid, I think would do, as well to see from the coaches in that workshop.
Thank you.
Tex, I'm a little concerned about your passion.
Okay, I'll work on that.
It's obvious that you're passionate about it, that your energy is there, that you yourself are personally committed to making a difference in the life of your athletes. And so I think that's really going to resonate with the audience that's there if they're in the right mindset as well. You obviously, as a teacher, focusing on multiple learning styles for people to be able to grasp the message. So whether it's what you say, whether it's for them interacting, whether it's the visuals that you provide, those are all great ways of taking that content to another level.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, I mean, just for already knowing the content and having presented this piece, I think it almost took me by surprise bringing the football out and just adding that extra element. I went from sort of expecting to know and sort of more critically listening to actually learning a different way, which is a cool experience.
Thank you.
Well, you're definitely a professional teacher. Cognitive, affective, and physical learning styles that you use, outstanding. I really appreciate your introduction and appreciation for the people in the audience that are spending 2 hours of time with you. Because in many cases, if not most, they're forced to. So showing appreciation for them, taking time out of their life is really imperative. You did a very sincere job.
Thank you.
Alex, go ahead.
I mean, besides just the bow tie, I think that's a good part. I thought your ability to get the participation out of the audience was good, and one way that I thought you did a good job of that was presenting to the audience exactly how many examples you needed, rather than just saying I need some participation from the group, saying I need 2 examples from the audience. That's a good way to give the audience an idea of how many people actually need to participate. I thought the props were great, kept the audience engaged. And then I liked one thing that you said was kind of talking about how negative comments not only bring down your own team, but it actually builds up the other team. And that's something important for coaches and players that you're not only hurting your team, but you're actually building up the other team. I think that's kind of an important takeaway and something good to talk about.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Eric, go ahead.
Great, sorry. Again, everyone always hears the magic in the room. I think you really hit on it. That I think clearly as a facilitator, I think that is your greatest strength. However, I would also not undersell a collegiate wrestling coach piece as well, because I connected with all of it, but make sure I would make sure that you also emphasize the coach piece a little bit more, or at least make sure that doesn't get lost. However, the bigger piece is you had such a plan going in. I love that. I mean, it's really well crafted, your presentation. So, I mean, I'm not a prop guy. I mean, there probably wouldn't be one thing that I would comfortably do, and you did all of them, not as shtick, but as a way to propel the workshop forward. So I just thought it was fascinating, actually, to watch. I think really, like I said, it was purposeful. So as long as everything you do is purposeful, which it was, I think it was great. So I don't have a ton of other questions. Every time I went to say, well, maybe this would be a time to solicit or ask a question, you did it. So that was kind of fun when I haven't even finished writing my sentence and you did what I hoped you would do. It was also good. So I enjoyed it. It was an eye opener. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Ruben?
Senor?
Yeah, Text. I thought you got some great feedback from everybody, and I agree with everything that's been said. One thing that I will add is I noticed, Tex, that you took feedback from your last practice mock and implemented it. And specifically what I'm talking about, Tex, is PAL, taking PAL and experimenting with TEL. So others who weren't with Tex in that practice situation, he had created an acronym PAL, and we talked about the effectiveness of that, and Tex, he changed it and experimented with something different. So I just love seeing that. And I guess the other thing I'd say is, the props and all really good, and it's just an indication of what Eric said, your preparation to do this. Thank you, Tex.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think as Eric said, you're a seasoned educator, and you can tell you're very clear, you're very smooth, and you're very passionate about what you're talking about, which I think is great. I think one of your greatest assets is that you are a coach, you also are a parent, and you also are a player. So I think depending on which workshop you're doing, you will draw on those more. I agree with Eric that I would like to hear your experience as a coach more if this is a coaching workshop. When you're doing the parent workshop, definitely draw upon your experience as a parent. But I think it's good to say overall what you have all of those things to offer. I love your props. I think they're great. I was really waiting for you to bring in the gigantic trophy in your backpack. I was hoping it was snuck in there, but I think the ribbons were just as.
I couldn't get that one from the state high school.
He wanted to lug this big trophy in and hold it up above his head, and I'm like, that might be great for the first workshop, but if you're driving an hour to do it, it might not be practical. But I really liked it. I like the question, I coach because. I think simple questions are the best. They're the most effective, and I think that was a great question to start off with. Again, looking for 2 volunteers, it's such a small thing, but from a group dynamics perspective, that helps out so much in just giving the audience an expectation rather than just saying, I have a question, and then leaving crickets. Tell them what you want. You want 2 answers, so that's what you're getting from them. I thought that was very good. I loved the way you broke them up for the E-tank filling and draining into parents, coaches, and teammates. What I would like to have had you do is give me a parent, point them out. How would a parent respond to their son who dropped the ball? How would the coach respond? How would the teammates respond? Just to show the different perspectives from each of the groups, and all that force on that one player might be a neat way to just extend it a little bit. The only suggestion I have for you, when you were talking about the magic ratio, of course to our audience, we know what the magic ratio is, but I think your explanation of it was a little bit unclear, because you talked about, what is the ratio? This is the ratio of, a lot of people just say it's the magic ratio, but we're not specific enough in saying when you achieve or get closest to this ratio of 5 positives to 1 criticism, the player's performance will increase dramatically, known as magic. So I think, again, because of the room that we're in, we all know what it is, but just make sure you're really clear about that explanation of what the reasoning behind the magic ratio.
And I really appreciate that. I will confess I had a clock in front of me ticking away in red letters.
I could tell.
I want to be conscious of people's time, but yeah, definitely being able to expand, because again, it relates to winning championships as well as winning players.
Yes, and I will let you know that I have already, with your permission, stolen the fact to point out that when a team is draining each other's tanks, it definitely fills the opposing team's tanks. I think that's such a great practical reason, because sometimes we as trainers come in and say, you should respect the game, you should honor your opponents, and we say it's all great and this is how you're going to have the best team, but when you just get down to flat out practical reasons here, you're filling their tanks by draining your own, and I think that's just a very concrete way to get those coaches that don't want to be happy-go-lucky to go, oh yeah, that really doesn't make sense. So I have stolen that and used it already and shared it.
All right. Again, we don't steal, we just share.
Now I steal.
Oh. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, Tex.
I appreciate all the feedback. I look forward to watching this again and kind of reviewing it myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Good to see everyone. I have to depart.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right.
All right, Mr. Swan, you are up.
Yes, thank you, Tex.
If I can just say quick, unfortunately, Kel, as I texted you or emailed you, I got to jump off now.
Okay.
But best of luck, my friend. I don't want you to feel disrespected, but I had to jump off at noon. So.
All right. Well, these are being recorded, and I'll send you the link so you can always watch Bryan's.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
After. Yep. Thank you.
So I'm going to create a little clarity before I get started here. I'm not as smart as Tex. I've been able to determine that. And my beard isn't half as good as TJ's. My beard here has kind of been a little bit of a challenge for me. So by the end of November, it will be leaving this space, and I'll look a lot younger at that point in time. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before we got started.
Very important to clarify those things.
Yes. So good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to our Positive Coaching Alliance Double Goal Workshop. My name is Bryan Swan, and I'll be facilitating today. And I want to give you just a glimpse of my background. I've had the fortunate opportunity to be able to coach over the last 25 years. When I started coaching, I'll certainly tell you I had no idea what it was I was doing. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to be involved in. I had the opportunity to travel the country when I was younger with an organization called Doyle Baseball Academy, where I taught baseball to kids 5 to 18. I actually certified coaches on the fundamental skills of the game of baseball. And so I knew how to teach the fundamental skills. I knew how to create strategy around baseball. And so I think I could do a pretty good job as a coach, but I continued to struggle to find out, how do I get to the mind and to the heart of the athlete? How do I really get the best out of them? And how do I understand, intrinsically and extrinsically, how to motivate that athlete? And so I really had to go back to reaching out and trying to find out if there was a better way. I had grown up in a culture where, frankly, it was about blind obedience. It was about do as I said. It was about the harder the coach drove, the better the coach was. And so there can be a tendency for all of us to coach how we've been coached. Unless there's someone in our life that takes what could be a relationship that's transactional to something that's transformational. And I had to reflect back to a time when I played for a coach who made that difference for me. So I'll be facilitating our workshop today. I want to emphasize the fact that this is a facilitation. This is a dialogue. I want you to understand that the experiences, the ideas, the thoughts, the feeling you bring to the table are of value. And I want you to take an opportunity to share those things as well. And frankly, I'm going to ask you to do that. The last thing you want to do is sit around and listen to me talk and have to look at this face for an hour. We're going to focus on us being able to get through the content together. And some great content that PCA is going to provide for you. Some tools and resources to help you be that transformational coach. So before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. I want us to make sure that you're able to sign in for our workshop. And so on the screen right now, do me a favor and pull out your phones. If you can just text to this number, our workshop number, which is #00000. Also need some additional information, your first name and last name, and your email address. With that, you will, in a short period of time, receive a confirmation that you've successfully signed in. So take an opportunity to do that. And again, thanks for being here. So let's get rolling. The first thing I want to do is share a video with you. This is a video of Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant was the 2014 NBA Most Valuable Player. And actually, this is part of his acceptance speech of that award. So I'm going to play the video. I want you to listen closely to what he says was his dream growing up. So let's just take a moment. So we'll play the video at this point in time. I think everybody knows the dialogue that's here. So Kevin Durant, NBA Most Valuable Player, said his dream was to be a rec coach. Why do you think that was Kevin Durant's dream? TJ, any thought?
Probably because his rec coach had a great influence on his life.
Absolutely. Great. Tex, how about you? Your thoughts?
I think when he was young, he was able to see something that made a difference. But I think also, too, maybe that was just the only realm he had. There was nothing beyond that but a rec coach.
Yeah. So, Tex, what I'm hearing you say is it was a realistic goal for him. He may not have had this dream of being an NBA player. Maybe he did. But the reality of being able to get there is really a small percentage of athletes that ever get to that highest level. This is something that he could obtain. And obviously, as TJ said, it was something that someone had an impact on him. So I want you to take a moment. I want you to take a moment to think about the most influential coach that you've ever had in your life. Think about his or her name. and think about why they were the most influential coach. So just take a second. Then if I could, I'd want to ask a few of you to share who that coach was and why. Kelly, would you be willing to share with us?
Sure, absolutely. One of my early influential coaches was Donna Tyler, and she was my 7th grade basketball coach, and I was the only player coming in that had never played basketball before. And she made it feel so confident and not embarrassed, not worried about it, and she just made sure that she filled me in on all the terminology and worked with me, and she just made it a lot of fun in a situation that I could have been really, intimidated by. So she was really just a great coach, and I ended up playing basketball all through high school and then coaching someday because of her.
So Kelly, when you think of Coach Donna, what feelings do you get? What emotions come out for you?
She just cared about me as a person. It didn't matter that I didn't have any basketball skills at the time. She just really wanted to make sure that I was having a great time, and she was supporting me, and it was okay that I was making mistakes and I wasn't as good as everybody else.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that as Kelly shares that example, she doesn't talk about she scored more points at the end of the year, that she was the most valuable player on the team. I think what she talked about is those things that made her feel better and grow as a young athlete. Okay? So we've all potentially had that influential coach in our life. So the next question that I have for you is, how do you want to be remembered as a coach? What will be your legacy? Any thoughts out there, or have any of you taken the time to think about that? Tex, how about you?
I think, again, as a coach, I want people to say about me that I was helpful, that I made the game something they enjoyed, but at the same time, I was someone they could actually trust.
Okay, great. Andrew?
I would love to be remembered as a coach that always had a really good group of players, or a really good group of people that happened to also play a sport.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good group of hockey players that were okay people. It was a great group of people that were good hockey players as well, or whatever sport it might be.
Okay, great. So we all have an idea of how we want to be remembered. I have another question for you. How will you know? How will you know that that's the lasting memory that your athletes will have? Or maybe when will you know? Just something for us to think about. I'll tell you that I've always had this focus as a coach that I wanted to share my passion for the game of baseball with my players, but I wanted to grow those men, or I should say young boys at the time when I coached them, into great men. And I wasn't necessarily sure whether I was accomplishing that until just about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, actually last spring, I correct myself, I went to watch my son Brennan play his college baseball game at St. John's University as a freshman. They were playing St. Thomas University, local college here, and at first base was a player who played with my son Brennan, who I had coached for 3 years. His name is Christian Linhart. His parents were at the game, and we connected during the game, and they said, "We brought something for you." Christian had to do a writing sample to be admitted to St. Thomas, and this is what he chose to write, and they handed me an envelope. And in that envelope was a 2-page letter about the impact that I had as a coach on Christian, and how it wasn't about him developing his baseball skills and now being able to play college baseball, but it was really more about the fact that I showed confidence in him. When he was struggling, I walked up to him and said, "Christian, you'll always be my leadoff hitter. You're my guy." That I taught life lessons through baseball, and maybe intentionally or unintentionally, I had a positive impact. Now, am I saying that because I want you to think I'm a great coach? No. I'm saying that because when we are intentional with our actions, great things can happen, and we can make that difference. And so that's what I would hope all of us would be able to do. And those only happen when I have the right mindset. So today I'm hoping that through what we're going to go through in this workshop, that we have this mindset, this focus on how we're thinking. But also, PCA and our double goal coach approach is going to provide us with what are those actions that really bring that mindset to life. And then the great thing is how do I bring those actions to life through a great set of tools. And so we're taking it from how we think to how we act to the things that we can intentionally do. And that would be my hope for you today, is that's what you'll be able to take away as well. So we're all going to learn in this thing together. So PCA is taking its mission and hoping to sweep the nation. We're looking at an opportunity to influence coaches and organizations. The PCA was founded in 1998, Stanford University, on a mission and a focus around better athletes, better people. It's really using youth sports as a vehicle to impact youth athletics, athletes, society, and really make the world a better place. So while it sounds very grandiose, it absolutely is the right thing for us to focus on. And PCA has some great tools that is going to allow us to do that as well. We're a nonprofit organization, and nonprofits need support. You can see on the screen here some great businesses, some great organizations, and some allies that we have that have embraced what PCA stands for and is helping us to shape the culture. We're hoping that you as coaches and this association here will do the same, that you'll help us spread the great us to offer and allow us to, again, make a significant difference in that youth sports experience. We have a national advisory board where, again, we have some athletes, some coaches who have certain power in their position, but we're able to leverage it because they believe in what PCA stands for. As you look at the screen there, are there any of those individuals that jump out to you? Anybody that you recognize?
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson, sure, yeah. A great technician, a great coach, but if you really understand his story, he even talks about Horace Grant as being one of those people that he kind of, as a coach, beat up a little bit and then realized he could get a lot more out of Horace Grant and a lot more out of his players if he was just filling his emotional tank. And we'll talk a little bit about that concept later. Anybody else jump out for the group?
Brandy Chastain.
Brandy Chastain, right? World-class soccer player. Again, a great group of advisors that are supporting us and the mission of the PCA. And so let's talk about the PCA model. The focus is really that we are going to become double goal coaches. As double goal coaches, we're focusing on two things. Winning is important, and I want to stress that winning is okay, because none of us go into competition without the intent to win. Would you agree? Absolutely. Winning is okay, but also really making winners in life or teaching life lessons through that youth sports experience creates that double goal coach. So it takes some time because it's a paradigm shift for many of us to think about going away from that win at all cost focus and really focusing on maybe, just maybe, it's about making the effort to win, which I control as an athlete and as a coach, and also making winners in life along the way. And so the principles that we'll learn today, the tools that we're going to provide with you today will allow us to accomplish that and allow us to grow as coaches and become those double goal coaches. So we've been able to talk about the first two principles of being a double goal coach. We've talked about the elm tree of mastery, the importance of that. We've also talked about filling that emotional tank and the importance of that 5-to-1, those deposits that we're making into the tank to that one corrective action that we take with the player as well. I want to now introduce you to that third principle. And that third principle is honoring the game. And at PCA, Positive Coaching Alliance, we have an acronym, and that acronym is ROOTS. So you can see the tree displayed here, and and you can see that while the tree is growing and the fruit is coming off the limbs and the trunk is stable, really the foundation is around the roots. The things that we don't necessarily see. Or maybe in the coaching world, it's not necessarily what we say, but it's how we act. And so we're going to focus on 5 key areas for us. Those 5 key areas make up that acronym ROOTS. And so, as we look at roots, let's first of all talk about rules. Why do we have rules in any of the games that we play? Any thoughts?
To keep order.
Keep order, Andrew. Absolutely. So it creates some structure, right? Any other thoughts around the rules?
To keep people safe.
Keep people safe. Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay. So the rules are there to create structure and create integrity within the game. But it's not just the rules, it's the spirit of the rules that are just as important. I want to share a brief story with you. I was coaching an 11-year-old Little League All-Star team. And we were playing for the district championship with an opportunity to go to Duluth, Minnesota for the state tournament. We were leading in the game 3-2. It was the 5th inning, and the manager who had made out our lineup came up to me and said, "Bryan, we have a problem." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, Hunter has played in the field, but he hasn't hit yet." And in Little League rules, all players have to hit within a 6-inning game. Well, he was 8th in the batting order, which meant if we didn't get some guys on base in the next couple innings, he wasn't going to get a chance to hit. And so I said, I really don't have a strategy for that other than I hope we get someone on base. Well, as it turned out, we went out and went down 1, 2, 3. Went out in the field, got our outs, got up again, went down 1, 2, 3. Hunter didn't hit. We needed 3 outs for our team to win. We went out in the field. We got those 3 outs. My kids are celebrating because they get to go to Duluth and play in the state tournament. I walked out to the umpire and I said, "We need to forfeit the baseball game." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Little League rules state that all players have to hit." There was no malice intent, but one of our players didn't get an opportunity to hit. I called the Minnetonka coach over to me and said, "We're going to have to play you tomorrow for the right to go to the state tournament. We have to forfeit the game." I went down the line and I explained to our players about what had happened. I had a father come up to me and said, "Why would you do that?" Nobody knew. I said, "But I knew." And so I went back to talk to the tournament director. The tournament director simply said to me, "We can't make that decision here. We need to call Williamsport." Now, I don't know if they have a bat phone in Williamsport because it was a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, but they literally got somebody on the line. And that person said, "The results of the game stand. The manager who made out the lineup is suspended for the first 2 games of the state tournament." I went back down and told our players about what had happened, and that very same father came over to me and said what a valuable lesson I had taught the players at that point in time. But it was the spirit and the rules. The reality in my mind is my son and his teammates going to this state tournament as 11-year-olds wasn't going to make or break their life. But if I taught them that bending the rules was okay, that might set them up for a lack of success down the road. So rules are important. Let's talk about the O, opponents. How do we honor our opponents? Any thoughts on that? TJ?
Shaking hands after a game.
Shaking hands after a game. Andrew?
Complimenting them when they've made a good play.
Okay. Absolutely. Some really great examples. Let me ask you this. What if, to Andrew's point, our team applauded an opponent when they made a great play? Somebody made a diving catch in football. Somebody made a great save that robbed us of a game-tying goal. Would that be okay?
I think people would think it would be weird.
Sure.
I think it'd be okay.
I asked my players that once, and one of my players said, "Well, we can't do that because that's not being competitive." So there's a mindset out there that says you have to be fierce but not friendly when it comes to your opponents. That you have to even create some level of a hatred for your opponents. I would challenge that and challenge all of us to say without our opponents, we don't have the opportunity and the privilege to compete. Let's talk about the next letter O in officials. This one is close and near and dear to my heart because I have a brother who's an NCAA football official. So I've sat in the crowd and heard him be abused time and time again. But how do we honor the game when it comes to officials? Kelly, any thoughts?
I think we just have to model. We have to show by our example as a coach when a bad call is made, use it as a teachable moment for our team, and just explain to the team that you're not frazzled by it, the ref didn't see it or the umpire didn't see it, and we're just going to have to play twice as hard on the next play.
Sure, yeah, great example. So we don't argue calls. I would encourage us all to set that expectation because most conflict is a result of unclear expectations. If I have an expectation with my players, if I have an expectation with my coaches, if I have an expectation with my parents that we don't argue calls and we honor officials, it will happen. It's very interesting that when the officials are not in the game, we're all looking into the parking lot to see when that car will arrive. Yet once they get on the field, we feel that we have the right to abuse them and question every decision that they make. So again, it's that importance of understanding to create our culture, we need to honor the officials. Let's talk about our teammates. Why is it important for us to honor our teammates, and how do we do that? Ruben, any thoughts on your part? Haven't heard from you yet today.
Yeah, I think it's important because in order for us to be the best team we can be, we need all the individuals to be the best they can be, whether they are the least experienced or the most experienced player. And on any team, you're going to have a range. There's going to be differences, and that's part of any team in sports or in life.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we create value around every player on the team, regardless of their level of talent. We want to make sure that our team understands that and values that. And we want to intentionally encourage them, maybe through what we call at the PCA the winner's circle, at the end of practice or game, of acknowledging a job well done. And maybe it isn't around who got the hit or who scored the goal or who made the game-winning catch, but it's more about things that they bring to the table that have nothing to do with athletic talent. Maybe it's the value that they bring by staying positive on the bench or by giving their best effort all the time and having that positive attitude. So teammates are critically important in this focus of honoring the game. And finally, self. At the end of the day, it comes down to that individual player. And so the individual player needs to have that respect for themselves, the confidence in themselves, and to be able to honor the game through themselves. So when we see someone who isn't respecting themselves, what does that look like? And when have you seen a player that might not necessarily be showing the same respect for themselves as they would for their teammates?
Head down.
Head down. Shuffling their feet, right? What else?
Just being hard on themselves when they make a mistake.
Yeah, there's a few players that are just those perfectionists, right, Ruben? Where they just think and they have this fixed mindset that the outcome of what I did on a play validates whether I'm worthy of being on the team or not, rather than that growth mindset that says mistakes are okay, right? We're moving back to the elm tree of mastery, and that's part of the learning process, and that the mistake gives me an opportunity to grow as a player. That's something that we can foster as coaches with our team. So we've covered all aspects of the third principle of roots. Any questions about anything that we've covered so far?
Nope, I think we'll wrap that up there.
Okay.
I think that you did a great job. The way that you started, same thing with Tex, and I'm sure Jake, you'll be able to do the same thing, is that when you're doing your introductions, you really provided them sort of a roadmap to what we're trying to accomplish. I think as as was said earlier by Paul, that most of these coaches are not there because they want to be there, and that's something that we strive to get the associations to put a commitment to, saying this is a mandatory part of being a coach here in this program. And so sometimes it is hard to break them out of the shell and get them to be comfortable. So if you can give them sort of a very direct path, which you did, say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to accomplish over the next hour and a half, I think it allows them to sort of receive the messaging a lot more quickly than sometimes if we just jump right into the materials, and that it takes them a little bit longer to sort of get out of their sort of frustration of having to be there or whatever it might be that's holding them back. So I think that was a good job, and I think they actually did the same thing. You sort of said, hey, this is, at the end of the workshop, this is what we're going to accomplish. And then through the workshop, you sort of go back and touch back on it.
Okay, thanks.
Tex will go next. Definitely your control over the presentation, the training, was very thoughtful and specific. I really appreciated a couple of things you did that shows your experience in training. When I made a comment, you said, what I heard you say. And we know that's classic, and that's important because you're reinforcing something, and it makes me feel good inside that you understood what I said. You went to Coach Kelly and asked her what were the emotions she felt to kind of bring in that aspect. I loved your questions about, being a influential coach. How will you know, and when will you know? So I love that aspect too. And then also too, with this notion of, you said you kind of used us in your dialogue. I don't know if that was conscious or not, but by you saying us, it kind of made me feel like, well, yeah, so he's kind of one of me, instead of this guy just standing in front of me with a PCA shirt on, and he's going to deliver everything. He's actually one of us. And then also too, I think some of the phrases you brought up, fierce versus not friendly. I think that's something we can all resonate with, and being able to show that example was, or kind of bring us to that example to think about and ponder, really gets us thinking, and I think that's the biggest part. If you can get coaches that think while you're presenting, that actually complements the whole process instead of being talked to.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole, I feel like the whole pace of the presentation, I felt really engaged. It was never like a lecture. It was never, I think the words, the language you used was very inclusive, connecting emotion to purpose and principle. I think was a useful tactic. So.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Is there nobody else there?
Nope, just three of us.
I can't see you there. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. No, I thought you did a great job too, and I thought what JT just said about being engaging the whole time. Going third is probably not the easiest thing in the world to do, but got my attention, and I thought did a great job with presenting the materials. Obviously, know your materials very well. I think the Little League story is pretty incredible, and that's a great story to share. That just, I mean, that's like all practically straight out of a commercial, it seems like. So that's pretty cool and pretty neat story to tell by yourself. And I think the other one too, with talking about former players and the impact you had on them, I thought that was a pretty cool story as well. I thought some of your questions were a little bit deep to just throw out there and have the participation. So those might have been better served as a reflection. Take 30 seconds and reflect on how you want to be remembered. That just seems kind of a deep question to me to be able to answer on the spot. It seems like more something that maybe you reflect on for 30 seconds and then take one or two examples from the crowd, something like that. That might be one piece of critical or whatever. So other than that, though, I thought it was very good, and it was definitely engaging. And what I thought was great about all three of these is I learned something from all three of them. That's really cool for me to be able to take something from this. So it was very good.
Thanks.
Okay, Ruben?
Yeah. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for your time with us this morning and the feedback. Really appreciate it. Hey, Bryan, before I give you a couple comments, what did you think?
What I think?
Yeah.
I was, so Ruben, and just so people know, professionally, I facilitate all the time. Matter of fact, I teach people at our organization how to facilitate content, but being on this side of the table was a little, again, good nervousness and anxiety around it. And I was hoping that, my biggest concern was that I didn't know the content as well as I know my own content. Mm-hmm. And then that can be impacted around showing up in maybe lack of confidence and maybe lack of clarity.
Well, that's really interesting, Bryan, because I thought you handled that so beautifully. And I thought there was a great blend of PCA content and you bringing it to life, as others pointed out so clearly that you did. So congratulations on all that. Gosh, like the others, I could give you a long list. I thought your opening was very effective, great pacing throughout. You caught our attention right off the bat and kept it. You kept us engaged. You did the housekeeping stuff, you know, with the setting the tone for an interactive workshop and having us sign in. You were so present, like how you responded to Tex's comment about Kevin Durant. You know, that his comment could have been a curve, and I thought you incorporated it beautifully. You know, Kelly talking about her coach, and you refer. So when you think of Coach Donna, I mean, that demonstrates that you were listening to her and that you're really present. So the great stories. So two little suggestions. One is when you talk about the National Advisory Board in that slide, that's a sampling of the National Advisory Board. And I think that if we don't say sampling, people will think, oh, so PCA has a 7-person or 8-person National Advisory Board. That's, you know, I think that needs to be, you know, in 5 seconds. Even the one word, sample, I think makes care of it. And then with your housekeeping stuff at the beginning of the workshop, I would encourage you also to mention the Power of Double Gold book and how it's a lasting resource. We'll make references to it. You know, make sure you know. So the book is the other house item to try to hit. Bryan, very, very, very impressive, and really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree. I could not tell. I mean, if you were anxious or nervous in any way or shape or form, it did not come through. You just were very smooth. Your facilitation was great. I thought you had an excellent grasp of the concepts. And what I think I liked the most, I'm sorry I have an echo. I don't know why I'm echoing. But, what I liked the most about it was just your perspective on it. I think your intro was great. Then you know, your introduction of transactional versus transformational, that is such an important part that a lot of coaches miss. And you really, you know, brought that home, and then you illustrated it with a point about, you know, Christian writing you the letter back. Obviously, you were transformational in his life. So I think that was just very, very well illustrated. The one question I did have trouble with is how will I know? And I think I understand the reason you asked it. How will you know when you get there? And you had an example story. And I was sitting there thinking, how would I answer that if I was in my audience? And wait, Andrew, when you mute your mic, the echo goes away. Oh, I can mute Andrew. Hold on, let me try. Try that.
Well, you know, if you mute my.
Okay, I muted you, but now we can't hear you. So.
Right. My suggestion was just when we are talking, that Andrew mute the mic. And then he unmutes it when they're talking. I think that does get rid of the echo.
Okay, I didn't notice it for the other people. But anyway, so anyway, what I was saying was I just think your perspective on things was very, very clear. I like the way you did it. There's a lot of times when we'll hear people even explaining honoring the game and say, you know, the negative aspect of it. Don't do this. Don't disrespect officials. Don't disrespect your opponents. And just the whole way you ask the questions of why is it important to respect your opponents? Why is it important to do this? But then you took it one step further, just like you said you would. We're going to think, we're going to put it in action, and here are the tools. So you did that very clearly with honoring the game. And you know, it was a positive way to look at it, and it was an action way to look at it. What do you do on your team to honor your opponents? Not, oh, you know, do you have a problem with disrespect? So I thought that was very, very well done. I liked that a lot. I really did. I was trying to look through and pick out things that I would like to have seen you do any better. And I had really struggled trying to find things because I thought everything about it was very good. As I said, the only thing that I would have probably encouraged you to do a little bit more of is, and it's so tiny, picky little thing, is that you are so crisp and clear in your explanations, maybe just varying the energy level in the room. You know, at times pick up the pace or slow the pace down a little bit or show a little bit more energy in your presentation. You know, you're very poised, which is good, but maybe, you know, get a little bit of just vary the pace of your voice or energy level would be the only wish that I could come up with. But as I said, it did not get in the way of the effectiveness of your workshop at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any other, anybody in the room? I can't see you, but do you guys have any other comments for Bryan or Andrew to wrap up?
No, I mean, I think all three of them did a phenomenal job. I'm very excited to have them as a part of the Minnesota chapter. And, you know, I think that as they get workshops under their belt, they're just going to be more and more confident in the material, and it's just going to make that presentation that much more effective. So, yeah, I mean, I have no problem sending them out if they needed to do a workshop this afternoon. We could get it done. We don't have workshops this afternoon, guys. Don't worry about it.
And he'll usually give you a little bit more notice than there's a workshop this afternoon.
Usually at least 2 days in Minnesota.
Yeah.
We have to play things fast and loose here.
No, I think it's just all three of these were so great. And I think it really does show the value of the difference in the trainer's style. I mean, all three of you had a completely different background, completely different style, and it was equally as effective for each of you. So I think these type of situations where you can learn from each other and watch as many as you can to just see the different ideas and the different styles is so valuable. So Andrew, I really do again appreciate you taking the time to do this today.
I want to thank you also, Andrew. This is so good for the trainers, and it's such a nice addition to what Kelly does with these trainer prospects. So thank you very much, Andrew, for making it possible. And Bryan, Tex, and JT. Actually, I guess who left? Tex or JT?
No, just Paul Larson left.
Oh, it's Paul that left. Bryan, Tex, and JT. You know, thank you for making the time and giving up you know, part of your day to be there in person. It's a significant chunk of time and investment on your part, and I'm glad you did it. I think it was awesome. So thank you all very much as well.
I'll probably say on behalf of all of us, thanks for the opportunity. It's been a great 6+ weeks of learning as we go and be able to take our knowledge and experiences. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this experience and to get the experience from these young men. So it's awesome.
And Ruben, I would say that I know that it's not easy to do the online learning that Kelly does, but she brings quite a bit to the table with her knowledge and expertise. But she's always has the same level of energy, night in and night out, or afternoon or an afternoon out. And again, it's tough to keep people engaged online sometimes. She does a really, really nice job with that. So Kelly, thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Way to go, Kelly.
My tank is filled. Now I got to go make turkey. All right. Well, guys, I will be in touch. My wish is that you guys can get out there in front of a live audience sooner than later. So I will work very hard with Andrew. I'm going to be following you guys all the way through till certification. So you'll probably get a lot of emails from me saying, "Are you available? Can you help out? Can you do it this workshop?" And we'll decide, you know, which principles you're going to be presenting, 1 or 2 or 3, or how we're going to handle it from there. So I will be in touch very soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kelly.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Thanks, guys.